Boom, there it is.
There we go.
The Great Rick Mast. I'm Charlie Marlow. This is another live edition of the Rick Mast Show. I love these, Rick. I think the viewers love these as well. We're going to give people some time to jump in here and they can ask questions and all that. But first off, man, how have you been?
Been good, Charlie. It's been a while, right? We got to get more of these going. We spent Labor Day weekend. Let's see, what did we do? So Katie came in from Colorado, right? So we had to go to the UVA football game Saturday night. Came back. Then we had to go take the boat out Sunday to the lake. I put a video out about that in a damn monsoon. But man, when you're married and you got all girls around you, you do what you're told. So we did that all day Sunday. Then Monday we went down to the Rockbridge Baths Labor Day festivities and got some pork barbecue, and then took Katie back to the airport, and that was my weekend. So fun time, fun time.
I love it. Now, I did pick up. You were saying we had to go to the football game and we had to go to the lake, like it was an obligation. Come on now.
Are you married, Charlie?
I am. Yes,
Do you have a daughter?
I do.
How
Yes.
old is she?
She is 6.5. She's in first grade.
You just wait about 10 years, big boy. You'll understand. You'll understand what I mean. Yes, you do what you're told, man. Hey, dude, I've been married for 40, whatever, some years, right? I mean, I don't know if I've been married. Got married in 78. However many years that is, I don't know. But yeah, I learned long ago. Just go along, especially when you got twin daughters, right? Just go along. Just go along. Makes it
I
makes
love it.
makes makes life much easier, guys.
That's so true. Happy wife, happy life, and I guess
That's
happy
it.
daughters. We have to think of a rhyme for that one. But
That's true.
we got
That's true.
people jumping in now. So folks who are watching, get your questions in. I said hi there, even though I'm not Kenny Wallace, but I'm representing Kenny Wallace. So that's not Kenny, that's me. But let's start off here, Rick. How about just big picture thoughts on Darlington?
Yeah.
I thought that was
Yeah.
a hell of a finish.
Yeah.
I was rooting the last couple weeks. I wanted to see Kyle Busch get into the playoffs. It didn't
Yeah.
happen. He's running better, but what a great story with Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, it was. I mean, how can you can't script a better deal, right, for the final race? I mean, that's what this whole thing's about. I mean, you've got two guys that are going for the win and going to get into the playoffs, dude, at the end of that race. One of those two that you didn't think was going to get in the playoffs are going to get in the playoffs unless they wreck each other the last lap, right? And then you've got the I mean, you got a whole story with Kyle Busch. How did he get? He went from the villain man to the most loved guy on the racetrack. Now it's wild. It's wild how this sport works, right? I mean, you go. Who was it? Carl Edwards asked somebody in the driver introduction earlier this year what happened when Kyle Busch came out and all the fans cheered him instead of booed him. And like Edwards said, what the hell happened to him? He used to get booed all the time, right? It's weird how that works. But man, for the final race and Briscoe winning that thing, and the storylines on that deal. I mean, Haas shutting down, right? And all the guys working and still putting it out there and putting it together, and they win the race. I mean, that's a big deal, dude. I mean, a lot of time, and we've seen this, man. The driver's going to leave at the end of the year, or the crew chief's leaving, or whatever. The team's getting disbanded for the next year. It's not going to be the same. And I've seen it, man. People give up. They give up, right? And they just don't run good the rest of the year. This proves fortitude with that team. The guys that work on that for Haas. I mean, it's a big deal to win that race for those guys, right? I mean, they're all changing jobs or out of jobs or whatever's going on next year, and then they come up and win this race. And then for NASCAR to have the criticism they get for the points deal, which I think is unfounded now. I mean, we've got our system in place now, and that's what it's going to be. And it adds excitement, it adds drama, it does all those things. No, it's not what it used to be. It's not the point system of old, but it's a more exciting point system. And Saturday or Sunday night proved that at Darlington, man. Just a neat deal for all those guys, really. Now, then you take somebody like Harrison, right, and Burton, and he's been catching hell about the work. He's the last place points guy, right? But he wins the race and gets in the thing, so people are criticizing that. But that's what should be because of the rule.
All right, Rick, we lost you a little bit. Can you hear me? maybe having some technical difficulties. Can you hear me, Rick? Can you hear me, buddy? Having some technical difficulties here, folks. Get your questions in. Okay. I see you again. Can you hear me now, buddy?
We did lose you.
Having some internet issues, folks. It happens. We lost his signal a little bit. Can you hear me now, buddy? I'll tell you what.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hey, Rick, I'm going to remove you real quick and try to jump back in. Okay? All right. We're going to have Rick hopefully come back in. Thank you guys for watching. Hey, technical difficulties. It happens every once in a while. So let me see if I can get Rick back in. There's a bunch of people in the queue to ask questions. 47 of you watching. Every once in a while, this happens, folks. So just stick with us here real quick. We're going to try to get Rick back on as soon as possible and jump in. So let's see here. Got some questions. Jeff Henson, love the racing. I will ask these to Rick, folks. John Oaksis, your opinion on classic tracks losing a date to go racing in Mexico? Great question. A lot of talk about that one as well. Stick with us, folks. Hey, this happens every once in a while. We're going to try to get Rick back on. Let's see here. I'm going to text him. Try to jump back on. And this is what happens when we go live. Every once in a while. This is the first time, actually. First time we've had technical difficulties. So we'll get him back on. Let's see. Brian, we'd have some boring races without stage breaks. That is true. Okay, let's see if we can get the Rickster back in here. Okay. Rick. Rick, can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you hear me, buddy?
Yeah.
Your signal's kind of weak.
Dude.
It was real strong at the beginning. You got me now?
Crap.
Somebody wants to know, Rick, why are you so cool? And we're going to ask him that.
Yeah, if I ever get back. It's not working.
Okay. I can see you. The signal's not great, but I can see you and hear you. So you got me now?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All good, man. Hey.
I don't know. I don't know.
All good.
We've got
No
we've got a strong internet signal.
Okay, cool. All right. I am going to ask you, Rick Mast, why you're so cool. And now you're looking stronger. So it's all good. I can't remember where we left off. And don't worry, I'm going to edit this all back up once we repost it on YouTube and podcast. Right. So it's all good. This happens, man. It's technical difficulties. Yeah. So I believe you were talking about specifically Harrison Burton, how some folks are going, hey, this is essentially a last place driver who's making the top 16. This isn't right. What do you think?
Well, the Harrison Burton deal, they've been catching grief, right? He's last place in points, and he's in the playoffs now. And people are fussing about that. But listen, when you go to Daytona in February, everybody knows the rules. The rules are if you win a race, you're in the playoffs, right? So, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, now how he does the playoffs, maybe he can turn it around and show people wrong, or maybe he'll run like they did the biggest part of the season and not be there. But the rules are what they are, right? And you play it that way. You do whatever you got to do to try to win a race. If you're not doing well, not running well, all right, for points, but the only way to get in is to win, and you're in. And he did. Other than Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon won, but he wasn't in, right? He was in, but he got taken out. So I understand the criticism. I understand that, but the rules are what they are, and it makes it exciting. It's exciting to have Harrison Burton in the deal because he is the last place finisher in points, but he's in the friggin' playoffs. How does that work? It's called wild card in the NFL, however you want to look at it, right? You look at it, you kind of look at, well, it's not sort of like it is a little bit like that. But listen, dude, the rules are what they are. They're in the playoffs. The Wood brothers got their 100th win, which was so friggin' cool. and special. And I'm so happy for those guys, right? And we'll start the playoffs to see what happens.
Yeah, let's go back to that because we didn't do a show after that race. And you talk about a feel good story for 5,000 different reasons. First of all, Wood Brothers, you really realize it seems like the whole NASCAR world pulls for the Wood Brothers. And then you got Harrison Burton, who loses his ride. His dad, Jeff Burton, the mayor, is up in the broadcast booth. You probably saw the video of just an epic fist pump when he wins. You got the hug down there.
Yeah.
And just take the racing out of it. This is also why we love sports. As a dad, as a father, I got goosebumps just watching that, watching him hug his kid, the fist bump, his mom, his fiance. I mean, that was an amazing story. That's why people love sports,
Right.
for stories like that. It was great.
It was, and you got it. And what makes it so special? A couple things. Number one, the Wood Brothers, 100th win, right? Number two, what you just talked about in Harrison Burton winning the race, but what he's been through the last 2 or 3 years, okay, and what's transpired. I mean, the Wood Brothers, that ride was his first big time shot at Cup racing, and he kind of floundered around, and for whatever reasons, they just haven't run good or performed, and he lost his ride, man. They fired him, right? You're not performing. We've given you ample time, we feel like, as a team, and everybody loves Harrison. He loves those guys. They all love each other. But I want to tell you something. If you drive for the Wood Brothers, everybody's going to love everybody. I don't care who you are. You'll end up loving everybody. That's just the culture that Lynn and Eddie have, right? And now the new group with John and everybody. And it started with Leonard and his brothers. And it just kind of goes into a feeling that, like, man, this is the craziest scenario that could possibly be. And from the Burton family, racing's been their whole life for years now, and their child gets a shot in a top Cup ride, and it doesn't work out, and he gets fired, right? And you're down, and you're dejected, and you've done all the right things for years to get to this position, and you're fired, dude. I'm a driver, and I got fired. My son just got fired, right? And what we going to do? What's he going to do next? We don't know. Then you turn around and you go to Daytona and you win the friggin' race at Daytona and you're in the friggin' playoffs, man. It's the emotional part for that family. What you saw play out on TV, none of that was scripted. None of that was, put on. That was true emotions. In fact, it was more emotional than what you saw, to be honest with you. But listen, man, that's racing, and as you say, that's sport. And that's what sports are supposed to do for the force. And NASCAR, they hit a home run with that one. They really did.
Okay, so let's flip back to Darlington for a couple reasons. As I'm watching that race at the end there, I'm thinking about Chris Buscher, because you have Tyler Reddick, and we'll get to him winning the regular season championship and also going through a lot in his car, puking, essentially crapping himself, which we heard on the radio. But then he kind of wanted to move on from that, which I get. Bob Pockras kept asking about it in the press conference, which was really funny. But go back to the first Darlington race, right? That's May. And then also remember Buscher lost that race to Larson by like that much. Where was that at? I can't remember where that was at.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Somebody will tell us here in the comments. But you got Chris Buscher, who, for the most part, deserved to be in the playoffs. He lost that race to Larson by that much. And then, of course, Reddick got too aggressive at Darlington. Everybody remembers the exchange, and Buscher kind of roughed him up a little bit. It didn't turn into a fight because Reddick immediately just said, look, man, I'm sorry. I screwed up. But like, that's what I initially thought of, because here's Tyler Reddick, and he's celebrating with the regular season trophy. Chris Buscher is so dejected afterwards, and all he's probably thinking is, dude, you won the regular season. If you just race me a little cleaner back in May, I'm in the playoffs.
Yeah, Chris didn't have a real good interview after that race. He kind of did some stuff, but I understood because I did the same thing, Charlie. I thought the same thing. As soon as they went to that guy, I'm like, damn, Reddick cost him this. He should be in this deal if it wasn't for that wreck with Reddick. I thought it. So if you were thinking it, Charlie, and I was thinking it, I got a sneaking suspicion that Buscher was thinking the same thing, right? And probably when he was giving that interview, he was probably sitting there cussing Reddick the whole time under his breath, but it would do no good. And he no, he had to be thinking about that. He had to be, because really, dude, one race, they all say it's 23 races. One race doesn't decide. But I tell you what, that one race did decide for Buscher. It really did. That boy should have been in the playoffs. If Reddick hadn't done that, he'd have been in the playoffs. And I got an idea. That's why Buscher said some of the stuff he did. He was so dejected. He was probably thinking about, I need to go whip that damn Reddick boy right now. But I can't say that right now because it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I think you're spot on that, Charlie.
All right, I have to ask you then, if you want to answer, what's
Okay.
the worst you ever felt in the car from a sickness perspective? And I'm not talking about. I'm just talking about what he was going through, which is probably flu-like symptoms. Again, you heard on the radio, he basically said some gross stuff.
Yeah.
He didn't want to get into it. And if anybody has access to that press conference, it's pretty funny. It's right off the bat. It's, I believe, Dustin Long and Bob Pockrass asking the questions. And Tyler Reddick's having some fun with it. He's smiling, but he's also saying, okay, can we move on? I don't really want to describe what actually happened in the fire suit, which was probably pretty disgusting.
I never defecated or never threw up in a race car, but I was close many, many times. And I guess we were Charlotte or somewhere, and I had food poisoning, dude. We started the race, man, and I'd been in infield care, and they pumped me with IVs. I mean, they filled me up with fluids and doing all they could do. They worked on me starting that morning all day, right, till the race started, and just felt like crap. The race started. I'm like, man, there's no way. But as the race went on, I started feeling better and better. And finally, I think we talked about this earlier. It was a rain delay late at night, right? And we had a rain delay maybe 3/4 of the way through the race. And I'm sitting there in the car and I'm like, yeah, I'm hungry. I called my PR guy. He went and got me a piece of chicken and brought to the race car. So I ate it while I was sitting there waiting on the rain delay. So, it worked its way out of my system. Big credit to the infield care staff to do that. But I remember if you remember, Smoke did that at Watkins Glen, right? He had a little issue and he won the race actually. And I think he had to go jump in the shower real quick. But man, you fight through a lot of discomforts in race cars. The worst I ever felt in a race car, honestly, I broke some ribs at Bristol one time, and the next week we had to go to Texas and race. And gosh, I forget the group that was at the racetrack then. It was one of the groups, medical groups. Anyhow, they fashioned me a donut, like a piece of plastic or foam rubber donut that went around my rib cage with a hole in the center, and it protected where the ribs were actually broke. And then they gave me a TENS unit, and I put the TENS unit on me. If you know what a TENS unit is, it's two little diodes with wires. You put one up above the brake and one below the brake, and you got a little dial thing, a little control box, and you set that thing from 0 to 10. And if you've ever had a TENS unit, you know what I'm talking about. And so I was messing with that thing, and you set it up to like 2 or 3. It was about all you could take. It makes pain sort of. Man, they dropped the green flag in 5 laps. I had that dude turned to 10 all the way up far as it would go, right? And just a miserable experience in that race car that day. I remember they came in for the first pit stop. They jacked it up and let it down on the right side. They come around the left side, jacked it up, put tires on, let the jack down, let it down hard. I thought I was going to friggin' die bad. I thought I started seeing stars, and I fussed at them. I said, guys, don't let the jack down so damn hard from now on. Just let it down easy. You're killing me, right? But that was my worst experience trying to drive a race car with pain, okay? And it's not fun, but you overcome it. That's what you get paid to do.
And folks, get your questions in. We'll talk a little bit more about these last couple races, and then we'll get to all your questions. So get your questions in the queue, and we will get to them right after this. Do you think, Rick, is it good for the sport? Is it good for the sport that the playoffs are so difficult to make because the win and you're in, that you have some great drivers, in one case, a Hall of Famer? I mean, look at the cutoff. Chris Buscher, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain,
Right.
Kyle Busch.
Right.
I'll just mention the first four out. I mean, I
Right.
think most people want to see Kyle Busch in. I think NASCAR wants to see Kyle Busch in. He's good for business. Ross Chastain, the last couple years, very exciting. Bubba Wallace is always part of all the storylines. Buscher's been very solid. So, look, you got some guys, which we mentioned, the Briscoes, the Burtons, Cindric, Suarez, who are in. I think it makes the sport much more entertaining for TV. And we've kind of touched on that. But do you think, is that outweighed by the fact that somebody like a Kyle Busch or a Ross Chastain are not in the playoffs, and you have some superstar level talent that's not on display with a chance to win it?
Yeah, how do you guarantee it? I mean, yeah, your points are valid, Charlie. Kyle Busch, NASCAR needs Kyle Busch in the playoffs, right? The storylines with Bubba Wallace being in the playoffs would be big for NASCAR, right? Those are two big ones right there. Uh, the deal with Buscher, right? I mean, yeah, those guys, the way they run, the way they compete, the way they performed all year, they should be. They should be in the playoffs. And but they're not. They didn't do what they needed to do to get in the playoffs. And again, I go back to the Burton deal. You know, the rules are what they are. You know, we this thing was changed years ago, dude. They call it the Matt Kenseth points deal, right? When Matt won the championship that year, whatever year it was, and he had it won what 3 races to go or something, right, on the old system, and people just raised holy hell then about it. All the fans raising hell. How's that guy? He won one race and he's our champion, right, or whatever it was. It was a boring type championship, you might say. And I'm not saying that to degrade Matt or what those guys did, Robbie and all those guys. It was great winning that championship, but that's what drove us to get to where we're at with this points deal. Now, how do you guarantee that your best drivers are going to get in there? You're not going to do that, right? This year here proves that you're not going to have, or what we perceive as our best drivers to be in the same, or what we perceive as the drivers that should be or need to be in the playoffs for the publicity for NASCAR. You can't script that stuff. I mean, you set up this thing the way it's set up, and the guys that get in, the ones that don't. I mean, it's really no more complicated than that. But yeah, it to your point, those guys, it would be good for us and good for NASCAR if they were in the race. But by not being there, that creates another storyline, Charlie, that we're talking about. You know, we're all talking about these guys. I've been reading it now every day since the race ended, right? And the guys that's not in it, and like, well, that's creating a storyline here, right? But then we go to, I guess they're doing a little TV series for the guys that's in the points deal, right? And like last year, who was it? Chase didn't make the deal.
Right.
And so everybody was all upset that Chase wasn't going to be part of that mini docu TV series they did. Yeah. So, I don't know. A lot of things figure into it, but listen, dude, we're going to Atlanta. The guys that's in the points, this is their first deal to go after it. So all we can do is talk about what happens from here on out.
It's kind of funny too. You mentioned Chase with that Netflix show, and I watched a couple episodes of it. I can't remember the name of it. Somebody in the comments will let us know. But it's kind of funny about Chase specifically because a lot of people, and there was a really good conversation Kenny Wallace had with Danielle Trotta. We put the clip out. We haven't put the full show out yet, but Danielle Trotta and Kenny were talking about drivers needing to do more to promote the sport. And a lot of that was centered around Chase. And it's kind of funny because I don't know if Chase really wants the camera crew up in his business anyway, So he didn't make the playoffs last year, but maybe for him, he's like, hey, I didn't really want people following me around to begin with. But look, if they do it again this year, Chase is going to have to kind of open up his life, which I think people want to see, even if he doesn't want to show that. I know he's a private person, but the fans are into that.
It worked out perfect. Talked about getting him on our right, and one of the biggest things that ever happened
All right, having some more technical difficulties again, unfortunately. You got me, buddy?
And you can't.
Okay. Rick, you got me? All right, this happens, folks. I'm going to remove Rick again. Rick, come back in. We're having some internet issues. It's all good, folks. This happens. You know what? And usually it's like a caution at the end of the race. When it happens once, it usually happens again. It's like a green white checker, okay? One caution leads to more cautions. It's the same with internet issues. So I'll tell you what. We'll get Rick back in. XLRN, where do we send in our questions? Right here. Right here, we're going to ask Rick your questions once you get them in. And there's some good ones. I'll just show some of your comments up here. Jeff Henson, it's all good. I'm here. Okay, let's see if we can get Rick back. I apologize, guys, but this happens every once in a while. It's all good. No worries. Let's get Rick back in here. This is the beauty of live shows. Let's see if Rick is going to jump back in. You got me there, buddy?
Clear. Golly.
That's all right. It's cool. I feel like once you get back in, your internet signal strengthens. So we should be good here in a second. Like I said, it's all good, man. I'll edit this all up for the podcast, and we'll put a clean video on YouTube. So you getting me? Let's see. I'll just show some more comments here. Jeff Henson says, love it. Okay. Your signal looks strong. You got me now?
I do.
Okay.
Okay.
No worries, man. It happens. It's all good. Hey, here's a good question. I never thought about stage breaks in this capacity. This is from Rick Brian Lekorchik. He says, if you're at the race having some beers, it's nice to know when the break is going to come. And that's interesting because I never really thought about that. If you're thinking about football, the end of a quarter, halftime, baseball, the inning ends, the home team hits, you run to the bathroom, you get your beer. That's kind of a nice added bonus of the stage breaks. What do you think?
I never thought about that either. Not from the fans' perspective. Yeah, that is pretty cool. But you know what? It's going to overrun the bathrooms. That's probably like halftime at the football games, or in between innings, sometime at the baseball games. You run to the bathroom. Well, everybody else is there waiting on you, or you run to the beer stand, or the Coke stand, or the hot dog stand. But yeah, that's a pretty good take there, dude. I hadn't really thought about that. I bet you the hierarchy at NASCAR has thought about it. They don't, a lot of that stuff they know, but they don't talk about. But yeah, that's a pretty good deal. I like that. And from a driver's perspective, it's kind of a cool deal. Of course, I never did it. We didn't do it when I raced, but I'm like, that'd be kind of cool as a driver to know at such and such lap you're going to get a caution, right? And you can do some kind of adjustment, or you can do something for yourself, or whatever you need to do, because before that, you didn't know when you was going to get a caution or get a break, or what you could do to your chassis. Man, it's just a cool deal, I think, for a driver to have that. And that's a cool deal for the fans, man. Cool deal. Good thought, my man. Good thought. I like that.
It's funny though, and when I used to do radio, I'd always say this, and I know the Cardinals organization didn't like hearing this, but it's the truth from my perspective. Now, don't get me wrong. First of all, I love it when the Cardinals are great and Busch Stadium is packed, 45,000, especially September, October in the playoffs.
Right.
For me, a baseball fan, no better place to be. But if it's a day game and there's nobody there, it's easy to park. It's easy to get a beer. It's easy to go to the bathroom. And by the way, the Cardinals are having some historically record low crowds. So I'm sure ownership is very disappointed with that. But if you want cheap tickets and you want easy in and out, when the team isn't playing well and when the fans are mad, the ballpark experience, hey, you know how this is too. I used to do this as a kid at Old Tiger Stadium in Detroit. You'd buy the $5 tickets and you just keep moving down until the usher tells you to stop, right? You try to sit right behind the dugout if nobody's there.
Yeah. The drivers, when you couldn't do the bath message.
All right. Rick, unfortunately, we lost you again, man. It's like I said this to the viewers. It's like a late race caution. Once you have one, you have multiple. So we're having some internet issues. Tell you what, why don't we do this? Let's just shut down the live. We'll try to get back and do a tape version, but it keeps cutting out. So let's just we'll end the live here. So Rick, I'll talk to you. We'll try to get back on. So there you go, folks. Sorry about that. Look, it happens every once in a while. Technical difficulties. Thanks for jumping on. Look, Elon's fault. Jeff Henson says Elon Musk's fault. Thomas Kelly, not as fast as Xfinity Internet. Let's see. Jeff Henson says, love it. Okay, look, guys, it happens every once in a while. Hey, we were able to get some good stories and some good talk in there with Rick. So what I will do is I will re-edit the good stuff, put it together, and then post it on YouTube here so you can see it without all the interruptions. Sorry about that. It happens every once in a while, folks, but appreciate you jumping on. Next time, hopefully we won't have the internet issues. See you guys. Have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. And we'll have Kenny back on. Coming up here, we have the Kenny conversation with Caitlin Larson. That's doing really well. Coffee with Kenny this morning. Kenny's in Charlotte. So just check it out. We have all kinds of content here on the channel. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for sticking with us through the technical difficulties. We'll see you guys.